Are we live?
I think we're live, yeah. So
All right, cool.
just give it a few minutes, people
Yeah,
coming
I'll let
in.
everyone join in today.
I could sing, but like you don't want me to sing.
I haven't heard you sing before.
And you never will.
I mean, that could be a nice remote activity. Sing-alongs,
One time
karaoke.
we tried to sing Jess happy birthday one time over a Zoom call. It was like 13 people. And you know what? Of all my remote experiences, I finally found one that didn't work, and that is like trying to sing like on key in a Zoom meeting. Just it just doesn't work.
No, but well, today we're going to talk about all the things that do work.
Right,
So I'm
exactly.
very excited about
So
that.
luckily that's literally the only thing.
Maybe if you staggered it, everyone had a line, you could sing in like that
Yeah,
might be
you could.
cool.
I saw some like a cappella people doing it, but they had
Oh,
ear in. It was a much more sophisticated endeavor.
awesome. All right, so we're gonna let people continue to join. We're about like 1 minute into the webinar. Thanks everyone starting to tune in. We really appreciate it. If you can't hear us, please let our team know. They're kind of monitoring the Q&A. So if you are having any issues, please do let us know. But if you really continue to have issues, we will be sending this recording out, so you can watch this in your own time, maybe while you're making dinner or just want something else to watch besides Netflix. So we will get started soon.
Yeah, maybe one more minute or so.
Sounds good.
So it's super snowing in Denver, just so you know. Like I mean like snowing, like needs a plow on the road
Oh
snow.
wow. Well, if anyone else is from Colorado tuning in, definitely reach out to us on Twitter. Shout out to Lauren. I'm here in Boston working remotely. I woke up to some flurries and almost cried. I was almost like, am I still dreaming? Is this a
Yeah.
dream?
I mean, it's like pretty to look at, but I do not feel like shoveling after this. So,
Yeah. Oh.
right.
I hope everyone's getting excited because Lauren and I could just talk, have some funny stories, and we'll continue the good times for the next hour. So we appreciate everyone joining.
We do have some structured content as well.
All right, Lauren, how about we start soon? What do you think?
Yeah, I think we're ready.
All right, let's do it.
Okay. One. All right. Hi, everybody. Let's get going. So no matter where you are in the world, whether you're in snowy Denver like me or somewhere beautiful and sunny that I like to imagine in my head, thank you so much for joining us today on the Remote Work Playbook webinar. My name's Lauren Moon, and I'm a customer lifecycle manager at Trello, and I've actually been with the team for over 5 years now.
And I'm Janet Mesh. I'm marketing coordinator for Trello. Been with the team for nearly 3 years. You'll know me because I'm usually behind the scenes helping to manage the Trello blog and social media channels. So speaking of which, we would love to hear some of your remote work ideas, any feedback. Definitely share your own boards if you have them. We'll be presenting 5 of them. Check us, reach us on Twitter at Trello. Our team is on there, ready to respond and engage with you on that platform. So we're super excited. Thank you all so much for joining us. On this webinar today, we're going to present a few remote work best practices. And then we're gonna do a bit of a dive into a few demos. So 5 different Trello boards your team can use. And then we're also going to show you some of the power-ups that you can enable on these boards to make them super flexible and really integrated. And then a couple other features that we're gonna go over. And of course, even more remote work resources for you. All right, Lauren, but I think everyone probably liked our story time in the beginning. So I was thinking we could tell a little bit of story.
Story of when we first met.
Okay.
The remote story.
Yeah, this is a good one. So some of you may be surprised to learn. I actually met Lauren for the first time on a Zoom video call. It was actually my interview. And not gonna lie, it was my first video interview and I was super nervous.
Right? Now look at you. You're an old pro. It's been 3 years. And honestly, it's been 3 years of working together and we have like a very tight relationship,
Dang, I agree. Also, I started off with Lauren. She built the blog. She managed it for like, I mean, you for almost 4 years.
Yeah.
It's one of the top. I mean, I think it's one of the top blogs in the world.
Wow.
But it's really cool because like we publish literally hundreds of blog posts together, and we have never met up until last fall.
Yep. That
Right?
was,
Yeah.
yeah, it was funny because when we actually met in person, it was like nothing. It was just like, it
Hey.
felt like so normal. I felt like I knew you. The only thing I didn't know was like how tall you were, you know?
Oh yeah, I was yeah. You're taller than me. I was like, oh okay.
Right. But you're tall too. Like that's
Right.
literally the only thing. Everything
Yeah.
else was just like, hi, like, just normal. So,
Right. And then just kind of like looking up a little or looking down a little. Yeah, that's a funny thing about it's almost like levels the playing field when everyone's on a video call.
right. All right. So, yeah. So, as you see, I've been working remotely or with remote teams for at least 5 years. And I love stories like this because it proves that, like, when you embrace remote, you can be just as impactful, maybe even more than when you compare to working in a traditional office.
Hmm. Totally. Yeah, absolutely. So we wanted to kind of like explain a little bit of like what a remote, like the definition of a remote team is. This is set the stage here. So a team is remote when a majority of the team does their work from a different location than their teammates. I think taking it a step further is like you're truly remote. Trello's been a remote company for nearly a decade. Several other companies. Lauren literally co-authored an entire guide of best practice for remote workers, and it features like tips and best practices from 10 global remote teams like Atlassian, Buffer, Zapier, Litmus. These companies have really set the stage of like what a remote company is and how it like the processes and how it functions. So definitely truly remote when everyone is working remotely and your systems support that working environment. So we'll be sharing like links to a lot of these resources that we're mentioning on our follow-up emails. We'll kind of just give you a little bit more detail later on. So, we will settle on this content so you don't feel like you have to go searching for it now.
All right. And also, we want to hear from y'all about your experiences. So I'm going to release a little poll. I'd love if y'all would answer, and then we'll sort of check back on the answers to these in a few, because I'm interested to hear. There's a lot of like varied ways to work remotely. There's a lot of reasons why people, and there's also a lot of challenges. So we'd love to hear from you. So just answer the poll at your leisure. And we will touch base on that later on. All right, so we are going to show you a few tools and 5 remote Trello boards. But I also want to go over some of the challenges and best practices that we found at Trello for remote work. So, it's relevant right now because there are a lot of people right now in the world who are new to remote work, right? Due to what's going on in the world. It's like the great remote experiment. And I think it's important to point out that the remote work that people have currently been thrust into is an abnormal experience. Like, I really want to acknowledge this. There's a lot more stress. This is a major disruption to work-life balance. And not to mention, like, most people's spaces are not optimized for the ideal remote work experience. So please keep all of that in mind, and, understand that these factors are heavily influencing the current view of remote work. So a lot of what we're going to talk about are some of the best practices and ground rules and kind of the gold standard. But do keep this in mind because we do suggest adaptations on our blog for what's going on right now. But if you are serious about being an effective remote worker, here's a few guidelines that we found. First is to establish ground rules. So the same way that you would establish a certain etiquette in an in-person office, it is important to set a few standards of working remotely. So for example, one huge aspect, and frankly, one of the beauties of remote work is that people are working from all over. But with that comes varied time zones, right? So one ground rule that we have at Trello is no matter where you live, you need to overlap with the 12 to 4 Eastern Standard Time. That's just like our rule that, as an example. Second is to communicate clearly and often. So with remote work, I always say, if you think you're over communicating, you're actually probably communicating just the right amount. So consider the type of communication you're doing and adapt your tools. For example, if you have an uncomplicated question that just requires a short answer, then your best bet is to use a chat tool. If you need a status update on a certain task, then just go to the relevant Trello card and communicate there so there's a record of it, and that's more easily referenced. And this is perhaps the most important one. If you have a nuanced, complicated question, or maybe you have to talk about something that's sensitive, please hop on a video call, because there is a lot of tone and nuance that's lost when you're typing an answer. And the truth is, people don't always assume what your real intent is when they can't see your face and they can't read your facial cues. So it's really important to hash out complicated communication face to face, right? Which by that we mean on a call, on a Zoom call. And third, you want to create a remote friendly culture. And we are going to demo some boards about this as well. Basically, you want to create social Slack channels. Popular ones at Trello are the pet channels. And you know there's a different one for the dog people and the cat people. There's homeowner channels, celebrity gossip, anything you want. And even though you're not all standing around the office kitchen, that doesn't mean that communication is just like all business all the time. You know, even in the team channels that are work related, be sure to say good morning, talk about your weekends, share funny anecdotes about your life, because it will encourage other people to do the same, and it will sort of like relax the mood. So when you do need to approach somebody for a work related something or other, you feel more comfortable because you already feel like you know them a little bit, you have more context. And finally, you need to have the right digital tools like Trello to set yourself up for success. And that brings us to what we want to present today. So we're going to take a look at 5 Trello boards, and all of these are free to use. We have templates set up for you that we'll be putting in our follow-up email. And your team can use these to work productively and also have fun while being remote. All right, first board. And Janet is going to actually demo kind of like Vanna White style. So you're probably wondering, like, how can your team manage projects? And the first board I'm going to show you is the project management board. And what we're going to show is, you know, the kind of work you're doing when you can't hop in a conference room and talk it out. So this is sort of, Janet, I think you're muted. All right.
Can you hear me?
Oh yeah, there you are. Okay.
Thanks.
So I'm just gonna go through this board. We see the board, okay? All right, great. So this is an example project management board, and it's kind of it's based on a Kanban flow. So what I want to show you is the first 2 lists on the left, or the farthest left list is a resource list. So that's something that the team puts up as sort of like just referenceable cards, like things that the team needs to reference all the time. You're going to be going to that list to try and find it. And you can attach checklists, Google Docs, Confluence Docs, things like that, anything you want there that you need to reference anytime. Now, the rest of the board actually follows a left to right Kanban flow. So you'd actually be moving cards through these lists as they're going along. There's a questions for next meeting list, which I like because anyone can add them whenever they think of them. The to-do list all the way over to done, and you got to have a blocked list for when things happen. One thing I want to point out is the use of labels. So let's say I'm a designer and I only care about the labels with the purple tab. You can actually filter on this board to only see the cards with that label on it. You can also filter for only cards with your face on it. There's a few ways to do that so you can see relevant examples. The other cool thing that we have on this board is you can actually automate with a tool called Butler. So Janet, if you click see that due date, April 18th on this
Yep.
card? If Janet clicks that checkbox to mark it as done, the Butler automation automatically moves this card to the done list, and you'll see it on the right. If you do it one more time, just so people see. So watch the done list on your right when Janet marks it as done.
All right, I'm gonna bring it back to doing just to make it a little bit more seamless here.
So watch that done list on the right when she clicks. She marked it as complete, and voila, there it is. So we really like Butler for automation. You can do a ton of things with that. You can set up rules with Butler using plain language. You don't have any coding required. So we'll talk a little bit more about that later.
Yeah, it's like Mad Libs almost. I remember that one. I love it.
It is.
We have a lot of great content on the blog about Butler, and there's some great documentation out there. So we're kind of doing high level, but I've had a blast using it. It's amazing.
It is fun. All right. So Janet, now you're going to talk about, what are you talking about next? Team meetings.
Yeah, we're going to go over team meetings. Great. Okay. So Lauren showed the project management board.
Can you zoom in a little bit on this board?
Sure. Just a little bit. How's that?
Better, yes.
Perfect. Great. So this is the remote team meeting board. And you have a bunch of projects with your team, maybe different departments in your organization, whatever type of business you're in, there's work to be done. But with that, there's also, you need to talk about the work that you're doing, provide updates, make sure that everyone's in the loop on statuses, goals. So this board is a really amazing repository for your team meetings remotely. So I'm just going to walk through the structure a little bit. So what we have here, you'll see is the first list is this week. So this is a great list because since everyone's not in the same space, they can just add cards to the list here and provide their own updates. How we recommend it here is under like team updates. So you can kind of just keep it contained to one card with the checklist feature. I love the checklist feature in the business class and enterprise of subscriptions for Trello because you can add, you can assign people. So I can assign Lauren like, hey, I need that update on content. So she would provide her specific updates here for everyone on the team and go over those. So you can visually see like who's going to be providing the update, makes the meeting flow very well. We also kind of have like a meeting lead as well. So that's why you see my face on here. So let's just say, for example, we actually wanted Lauren to be the meeting lead this week. We just drag her down and assign her as the meeting lead. This is really nice so that one person's not always having to kind of lead the meeting, gives everyone a little bit of an opportunity to kind of play, the scribe or just going through the agenda updates and it's not always just following on one team member. My favorite part of the team meeting board and these meetings that you run remotely, which is, I personally think is like crucial to success of teams working well together, is being really transparent, having that psychological safety of like understanding what kind of went wrong that week. Maybe not wrong, but like some woes. So they call them like team woes because, we all have challenges, but you can really work through them as a team when you're being transparent about them and everyone feels like they can kind of like bring up any challenges and be like, hey, I think we can improve here week over week. And it just, it's awesome because as with the checklist, you can kind of even start documenting these and have a running documentation of progress, which brings us to my second favorite part of our meetings is the team Bravo. So super important to start like congratulating people, giving them kudos publicly in the team meetings, being like, hey, Lauren, thank you so much for helping me prepare this webinar this week. Like I couldn't have done it without you, or, someone maybe just jumped in when they had some availability. So it's really nice recognition and putting that in there for everyone. And then as you can see on the rest of the board, we have previous meetings. So pretty much what we do is we'll create like a new list. So like, okay, April 16th, we had a meeting, and then you can just drag the cards over there. So you just have a running record of what was discussed week over week, and anyone can come in here and refer to it. Great. So I'm gonna keep going because sometimes when after your meeting, so usually when you have your remote team meetings, there's maybe aspects or updates that you really want to dive a little bit deeper into. So the brainstorming board is a great place to do this. We've like received some feedback that like people are like, how do I simulate a brainstorm, like, you know, when I'm not in a conference room with someone? And this board is exactly how you do it. So I'll walk everyone through it. So we have kind of just like a resource list, as you've been seeing on every board, just kind of explain like step-by-step instructions for everyone. So the expectation setting of what happens in the board. And how this brainstorm works is we present a problem to solve. So we just put an example here. Okay, we need a better 404 error page on our website. So you start everything, everyone joins the meeting and joins this board. And it's a really cool because it's like a live collaboration. So anyone can just start adding cards, adding their ideas to round one. And as like the facilitator of the brainstorm, you do want to put like a time limit to how long the team is brainstorming for round one. And once all the cards are added here, what we do is we kind of do this example constraints. So like familiarity bias, for example, like, okay, I only like this idea because I'm familiar with it. So you kind of have this really open conversation of like trying to narrow down which ideas are the best ideas. So you put these ones over into the list. They're like, okay, these ones we want to have a discussion around. So someone on the team was like, I want something Star Wars themed. And we're like, well, it's going to be May 4th soon. And you're just really familiar and obsessed with Star Wars. So maybe that's not the best fit for our brand, but great idea. But before you kind of have that conversation, what you can do is we have on this board enabled the voting power up. So there's two ways to vote on cards. Once the voting power up is enabled, you can just go into the back of the card and click vote. And then on the front of the card, you can see that there's like a thumbs up there. Or you can just hover over the card and press V on your keyboard. So I'm going to add just a couple more, a vote here. If there's like a couple more that here, depending on like the top votes, you can go to these three dots in the corner of the list as well. So you had like a ton of ideas and you're like, we cannot sift through all of this. You can sort by most votes, and the list is going to, it's gonna mess up the flow a little bit, but as you can see here, the top votes go to the top, and then it brings the discussion and you carry these ones over and you start talking about them. Star Wars theme made it in. So you bring the cards, like the ideas, through this board around the constraints, voting, very collaborative experience for everyone. And then you can come down to your finalist.
Cool.
Awesome.
Do you
want to have anything to add, Lauren? Because I know that this is also a board that you love.
Yeah, I do love this board because we use it all the time. Basically, like some of the best thing about it is it's the same idea as everyone's sitting in a conference room and like yelling out ideas while somebody's like frantically writing on a whiteboard, except everyone is just like in the meeting creating their own cards and their own ideas. So you spend time doing that, and then you spend time voting on everybody else's. And I actually find this like a lot smoother than the in-person whiteboard. The other thing is like, if you've ever brainstormed on a whiteboard in a conference room, you have to like take a picture of the whiteboard and try to remember what you talked about.
Yeah, and then you're zooming in, you're like,
right,
what?
Exactly. Whereas you could like comment back and forth on a card like this, you have the record of all of the discussion, and then you can move it into like another board or another list and like turn it into like action, you know?
Yeah,
so
that's a great point. Thanks, Lauren. So what she was mentioning, like as here on the actions on the back of the card, the Trello card, you can click move, and then you can change it to a different board. So that can then just go back to your project management board, and then everyone starts working on the idea and just goes into execution stage.
Yep, exactly.
Super.
All right, cool. All
Excellent.
right, what's the next board? I think
it's a remote team hub, which you were gonna walk everyone through.
All right, so mission control for your team's productivity right here. One-stop shop, resources, FAQs, what people are like, what's going on, even like stuff like vacations and team best practices. Mm-hmm. This is what I want to do. So on the left side list, this is another repository of information. These are like the links that everyone uses. These are people's working hours, which vary greatly when you're a remote team and you're on different schedules. So you also can link to references that you use all the time, like team OKRs. It's a chance for everyone to put their vacation cards in so you can kind of see them, and you can see when people are out in addition to having it on your calendar. The next part is current projects. So what we do here is we create a card for each of like the high level initiatives that the team is doing. And we ask everyone on the team to update the card every week. So Janet, if you click on the one that says blog redesign. So here what we're doing is every week, if you see in the comments section, every week I'm providing an update of what we did this week. If you scroll down, so you can see a whole record of this every week and see what's happening. And there's two ways to synthesize this. You can always go to the activity feed of a Trello board and see all of the updates, or the other thing, and this is something that we do all the time, if you look on the right side of this card, there's a Slack button. And basically what we did was we enabled the Slack Trello integration so that any update that I put on these cards are filtered into a Slack channel of our choosing. So even if you're not on Trello, like monitoring every update, you can always see that the Slack channel has new messages in it, and go in and see what everybody's updates are on the cards. So every Friday, Trello Marketing's team lead is just like watching the Slack channel like a hawk, and she doesn't even go on the board. She's just like looking, she's just reading the updates and commenting to us,
Yeah, right.
It helps her a lot. It helps her a lot with her weekly reviews that she has to do. Like she's reporting up into like Trello leadership, and she's just reading our updates and picking out the high level stuff and saying, okay, this week the team did this, the team did that. And then you also have this like running record of what's going on. One thing that we do sometimes for these is we turn on card aging, and basically what that does is the card like changes color if it hasn't been updated in a while. And sometimes I go on there and that's like a visual reminder, like, oh, I forgot to update my card. And I can do that. So there's a few different ways to do this, but it's a great way to synthesize like what is going on. And then Janet, if you go back to the main board.
Yes.
I also wanted to point out the FAQ and the how-tos. So what we do there is we like common questions. This is especially helpful if somebody's new to the team, is starting to work on the team for the first time. Frequently asked questions are like, just, where do I find this? Or who do we talk to for this? And then how-tos are usually like very detailed step-by-step checklists of common actions that the team takes. So this is like I said, a command center situation. And anyone can read or update this asynchronously. It's not something that you're required to all stand up in a meeting and do.
Right, exactly.
So I love this board.
Yeah. I wanted to add one thing to this because I just saw Google Drive was enabled on this board and Confluence. So on the how-tos, like if you have like your documentation in Confluence,
yes,
or Google Drive, you can just like add those links here and it shows on the back of the card. We don't have it enabled here, but you can see the power-ups are here. Makes it super easy to attach a recent page from Confluence, or even from Google Drive, whatever your preference is, but it's super flexible and it's just really easy to kind of toggle in between the apps without having to just kind of go searching for everything in the repositories.
Definitely.
Great. All right, Lauren, you ready for the fifth and final board we have to demo?
Yes, this is
All right, let's do it.
Okay, so
awesome.
This board we call Mr. Rogers, hear me out. So I mentioned that we're all about bonding at Trello, and this is actually a big priority, is to get to know your coworkers, especially because we don't share the same space on a daily basis. So we do make time for remote bonding, right? And we do a lot of different remote bonding. I specifically chose this one to highlight because it's something you can do now in the middle of a pandemic, as opposed to some of the other ones that we do that are a little more in-person-y. Okay, so we call this Mr. Rogers, and it's a way to get to know each other better and kind of stay in touch past like just work-focused kind of meetings. So what we do is every month, all of Trello has a town hall, and everyone at the company is required to get on this town hall. And you know, the CEO talks and blah, blah, blah for like 45 minutes. And then for the remaining 15 minutes, we use this feature in Zoom called the breakout room feature. So like let's say there's 100 people on the Zoom meeting. What you can do is use the breakout feature to just randomly split the whole meeting into a bunch of different little meetings that consist of like 4 or 5 people. And the best part about it is that it's random. So like I'm on the marketing team, like I almost never talk to server developers or, you know, some other people at the company. And it's like, I can just randomly get split into a group with them and get to know them a little better. So that's how we do it. And then as you can see in this board, these are actual screenshots of us. You can see my face on one of them right there. And Janet, if you click into that card, so what we do is we just like put what we talked about that day and we take a screenshot and kind of just keep it fun. And the reason that we do that is if you go to the activity feed of the board, you can kind of scroll through and see what different people talked about. You're like, oh, they just went to Hawaii too. Like now I know to like hit them up. Or, oh my gosh, I can't believe Griffin's thinking about getting a dog. So it's not just for the 5 people that were in the meeting, but it also kind of surfaces like conversation and commonalities amongst tons of people. And this is like a super like low impact thing to do. Like do it after a meeting where everybody's already there. So you're not even disrupting their workday, you know, and then just, it's 15 minutes of your time. I know some people do like prompts, like some HR people add like, today you're going to talk about this, but we just kind of keep it free form. You can do it however you want. And then also like making the screenshots of the people is a great use of Trello's card covers. And it's a great visual cue for being able to see what's going on.
Yeah, so if you like, right, if you attach it here, then you can see this is the card cover.
You can do it there. You can do your computer.
Make cover.
Yeah. So I really like this board because it's, like I said, it's really simple and easy, but it is a way to sort of facilitate bonding. And like, it's funny, some people are like, oh, that sounds so awkward. But once you actually get in, like, I promise you, just try it. It's really not that awkward. Like, you're just talking. And,
yeah, I find the same. Like, it feels unnatural to have structured, like, just kind of casual talk, but then it just becomes very natural and you just start to look forward to it during your work week when everyone's very heads down. And then it just kind of just reminds you to look up and be like, okay, we're all working with humans. You know, we all have things going on. Let's just kind of hang out and have a good time in addition to working pretty hard.
Totally. So that's an example of like a fun one.
Definitely. Great. So those were the 5 boards we wanted to demo, and we definitely want to share a couple more things regarding remote work best practices and some resources that we have. So we're gonna load that up.
So we hope you found these boards useful, and we have folks in the chat responding to some of your questions. I'm hoping that you can apply some of these, put these into action, because it's not just about working remote, it's also about like productivity in general. Like these are the kind of boards that are going to help you like stay focused, like while you're trying to work remotely, you know, and also make it fun. Like that is an important aspect of this. So you can dive into these boards and more by going to the remote playbook page. So that's Trello.com/teams, and then you can click remote, and we have like a ton of sample boards. We have a bunch of like recommended power-ups for different use cases, and a bunch of different resources there. We have one for remote teams. We have personal productivity. We have,
and the majority of the boards that we just demoed are here actually on this page as well. So you guys can get instant access to that right now if you go to that link.
Yep. And this will also be in the follow-up email.
Yes. I also wanted to add on to this. So these boards that we demoed, they are all templates, and we launched our Trello templates gallery last year, and it's really exciting because just yesterday actually we added a remote work section to the template gallery. So if you just click remote work there, go to Trello.com/templates, click the remote work tab, it's going to populate all of these boards as well. So 2 places where you can get access to these. We're also, as Laura mentioned, we'll provide it as a follow-up, but definitely take some time to explore these templates. It's really incredible. It's not just the Trello team that has created these templates, it's even our users, and they've been contributing some really powerful examples of how they're using Trello. So you can see from like business, design, education, marketing, personal projects. So, you'll definitely take some time when you have it to explore those and all the ways that you can be using Trello.
So we showed a bunch of features on these Trello boards, many of which were power-ups. And the way we describe power-ups in Trello we call them like additional integrations with like other tools that you use. And then there's also some advanced functionality features. So like you said, for example, voting is an advanced functionality that is a power-up. Our calendar is also a power-up. And then we have a lot of really popular integrations, including Slack, Jira, GitHub, Google Drive, Bitbucket. There's Salesforce. We have like any app that you use, we have an integration with. So we lump all of those together into power-ups. And we have hundreds, we might even have thousands at this point of power-ups. If you have a really dev-heavy team, you can actually make your own power-up that you can like self-host just amongst each other. We have a great API docs for things like that. So definitely check out the power-ups directory, and you can kind of explore all the different ways that you can like take your board to the next level, as we say in our marketing material. Yeah,
Definitely. Awesome.
So basically, we talked a lot about power-ups, and one thing I want to point out is you can get an unlimited number of them with Trello's paid products. On the free product, you are allowed to enable 1 power-up per board, but we find as people really get ingrained with Trello, they find themselves wanting to combine power-ups. So you can do as many as you want with Trello Business Class. And if you're a larger team, like I would say like at least 50 or more, then we definitely recommend Enterprise. And there's a few features that I want to highlight, including unlimited power-ups. You also, if you create a Trello team, you can have unlimited boards in your team. You get more admin permissions with the paid feature. So if you need to be like more, how do I say this? Like if you need more granular restrictions on your team, like some people are admins and some people are just members, you can get that with a paid feature. And then also like unlimited automation. You do have automation in free Trello, so it's definitely worth giving it a shot. But once you run a few commands, you might run out of like whatever it is, like command lines, and then you'd want to upgrade to the paid feature. And right now there's a lot of conversations with everyone going remote. There's a lot of conversations about security. What's the best kind of security to stay working online? And Trello Enterprise offers like the maximum amount of security. We have a few things that I know IT admins are always looking for when they're trying to adopt a cloud tool, such as like single sign-on, certain board visibility and access restrictions. If you have Enterprise, you're able to sort of like, the IT admins can sort of switch on and switch off which features they feel like they want their team to be able to use. So there's a lot of things for Enterprise that make sense for certain teams, particularly larger teams that are more concerned with security and need to be a little more granular. Definitely something to consider. And obviously all of these are available if you just do trello.com/enterprise or trello.com/business class. You can learn more about that. And we are pretty soon going to offer a free trial. So if you want to just give it a shot, that'll be available in a few weeks, sneak preview.
That's exciting.
Let's see.
All right, awesome. Yeah, so I mentioned in the beginning of this conversation how Lauren co-authored a remote work guide featuring like 10 global teams like Buffer, Atlassian, Zapier, just incredible companies and an incredible company. And I'm really excited about this because it's not like a gated page. You can just go to this link right now and read the full guide. It's the team put it up for free, so you have access to all the content, which I think is just absolutely incredible. We touched on a couple of like best practices, went through the demo of the boards, but this guide is meaty and it is really impressive, and you can learn a lot about things that we talked about today. And I've learned this is I mean, kudos to you on this one with Leah and the rest of the marketing team. This is a couple of years that you guys wrote this, actually, right?
We did, and I'm so happy that people are finding it so useful right now. These are all none of these tips are like BS. Like, this is totally authentic. Like, it happened. Like, we wrote this because we found pain points in our own working remote. So it's all real. It's all relatable. We've seen a great response from it. So definitely worth checking out. It's totally ungated. We don't care about your email. We don't care about whatever. We really just want you to get this content. So that's important for us.
Definitely.
It does look like we have a little bit of time for questions. What do you think, Janet?
Yeah, I think a couple of them came in, so we can
all right,
talk about them live. Before we get there, I just wanted to one last resource for everyone. Of course, as you know, help manage the blog. So this is really exciting. We're pushing out even more content regarding remote work. So you can see here in the screenshot, we have a remote work tab on the blog. So it's super easy to filter for this information, these articles. So tons of ideas, tips, and advice, how you can build and manage a successful remote team, personal productivity as a remote worker. We are coming up with like tons of different ideas. I would love to hear people's ideas too. Like, definitely reach out to us on Twitter after this webinar, because we're always open to understanding how everyone's working and what challenges you are facing and how we can provide solutions to that.
Cool. So should we just unmute Ronnie or somebody, and if they have any questions that came up a lot?
Sure.
Maybe they can.
I think that sounds great.
Is that possible? Is there like a common question?
Yeah, I think we could also end the poll and we can give a little bit of a feedback on that too.
All right, let's see. How long has your team been working remotely? Half of this webinar has been less than 1 month, which means,
wow.
As
Congratulations,
a result,
everyone.
Welcome to the
Power
world.
to you. Yes.
Like I said in the beginning, it is kind of janky right now, and that's okay. Just take it with a grain of salt. Work with what you got, and don't write off remote work, because you have to remember that everybody is sort of in this weird position right now. This isn't like the optimal way to work remotely.
Right.
So that's
I've been liking seeing on Twitter, like people's, just like being very real about it, because people are putting up like, I'm working from my like ironing board. But I think it's really important for managers to understand that like your team's not always going to be hyper productive during this time either. Like you need to have those open conversations that we were talking about before, and like understanding like how people are feeling, week over week. How those, if you have like maybe even a weekly team meeting that we demoed in the, like maybe add on another meeting just to kind of see how everyone's doing, just have a more high touch conversations with everyone, using Trello to keep track of what everyone's working on, but just jumping on a video call can really make a difference and really make everyone feel connected. And, you don't always have to go through every single update, but it's really nice if you can just kind of make that connection with everyone, be really transparent. Like this is hard. And not everyone, I bet a lot of people on here don't have the tools in place. You may be home with children, you may be taking care of family members, you may be by yourself or with a partner. And it's just, we all need to be gentle with that and use what we, kind of rely on people who have the knowledge and just kind of figure out all together.
Cool. And there was a big split on the biggest challenges you face as remote workers. Actually, like almost even split. There was tech learning curve, distractions from home, motivation. That's a huge one. I'm going to address that because personally, I've been working remote for years, and I've been working with remote teams for even longer. And I am like perfectly set up to work remotely. I write about it, etc. And I want to acknowledge that if someone and it's an optimal position as mine, I feel distracted. I feel a weird type of motivation. So if you're on a team that's been remote for less than a month, coupled with the feelings of anxiety about what's going on in the world, like I think it's important to recognize that your productivity is not going to be exactly the same. It's not about remote work. It's not a testament to remote work, like, oh, we're less productive because we're remote. That's not true. You're probably less productive because there's a global pandemic going on, you know?
Right.
And as such, you're all forced to work remote. So that's an important distinction to make, because I don't expect to be at my peak productivity, and I'm perfectly set up for remote work. So that's something that definitely important.
Yeah, I've heard some feedback, and like you know, our team has discussed it too. You know, like really like mapping out your day and trying to like time box is an effective strategy for self-management and productivity. So, you know, if like you have like a bunch of meetings, or you have like chunks of time that you can block out, or maybe you are at home with people and it's really distracting, like just being very transparent with your team. Like, I'm not gonna be available with those certain hours, but maybe I could put, you know, work, just kind of changing your schedule. That's really what's really nice about remote work. You can be very flexible with your schedule, and you can kind of plan it to when, you know, you're able to focus and put in your best effort when you have the energy to do so. So definitely we have a lot of like content on the blog, like regarding like the Pomodoro technique is a really good one. The like Eisenhower matrix, Lauren has a post about that. Like there's a variety of different tactics you can explore and start researching to understand that what would work for you. And it's really about finding what works for myself or for Lauren or anyone else on your team may not work exactly for you, but it's a matter of just kind of like trial and error and figuring it out until you feel really good about it.
Okay, Ronnie says she has two good questions in here. Hit me. What do you got?
All right, should we unmute? Yeah, we got
Yeah, unmute Ronnie.
Okay. Hi, I'm a phantom voice. Hello, everyone.
Hello, Ronnie.
Okay, one question. I loved this question. Who was asking it? They were asking, okay, if I have a Trello board and I have a small team, should everybody on my team be involved on working on the Trello board, or should it be just a select few people? And some context for why they were asking that is because not everybody on the team is quite accustomed to using Trello.
Okay, that's a really good question.
A great question.
So I think that let me think about how to answer this. So I think that what you need to do for a lot of people who aren't used to or are still getting used to Trello is finding ways to pipe the information into places where they can synthesize it. So whether you're just sharing your screen during a team meeting so they can kind of watch you interacting with it, like that's a first step, right? A second step is using integrations into tools that they already use. We talked about the Slack integration. If they're not familiar with Slack, we actually have a lot of great email integrations which allow you to, if you get an email, you can just send it to a Trello board. And one of my best friends works at MIT, which is in academia, which is not known for its technological prowess, you know? So she actually told me that some of her colleagues prefer to type out emails, and she set them up with a little Trello button in their email. And basically what they do is they type out an email and they send it with the Trello button, and it just goes right to the board. And that way they know that the information is getting sourced into the Trello board, but they're not quite there with like using it themselves.
That's super cool.
You know, like that's my idea is like, I would say don't enable people, because then you're going to get into a position where you have to update 5 different things. But being able to use integrations to like let people use the tool they want and it's still being piped into Trello is another great way to kind of work with people who probably aren't used to it and probably, you know, would need a little bit more time. What do you think?
I agree. I definitely the integrations. I wholeheartedly agree with your recommendations. Another one that I wanted to mention, I actually wrote a blog post about this, is the Jira power up. So I know there's like a lot of teams that will use Jira, and then, you know, their teams, like another team is using Trello and they want to be working together, but they don't want to leave their preferred tool. So you can enable the Jira power up, and it they pretty much, you add it to Trello and you can add the Trello to Jira, and it's the same thing, that they can update each other simultaneously, and everyone's not needing to just kind of like jump back and forth and constantly updating like multiple tools. So there really are a variety of places, like Slack, like Lauren mentioned, that you can you know, you can empower your team and they don't need to change their ways too much, because there can be a lot of like user adoption problems and people are just like, I really hate that tool, I don't want to go there. And but you can send them the info and it's really seamless for everyone.
All right, Ronnie, what else you got?
Okay, another question that popped up twice-ish were regarding Butler. So in terms of using it, I did link them to some like easy ways to use Butler rules, but from the things you showed us today and personally, what are some ways that you totally enjoy using Butler and recommend to everybody?
Oh, such a good question.
Oh, this is a good one.
I like the ones that do, like, we talk a lot about Butler, and this was the inspiration of the name, is like your virtual assistant, right? So there's a lot of things where you just feel like you're like manually updating things all the time, and it's kind of like admin work, and it takes away from the time when you can go heads down, like using your brain, you know, more in depth. So when you're like constantly little updating all these little cards. So I would say on a high level, I like using Butler for tasks that are just like menial, but like need to get done. So like every Monday, sorting the cards in the to-do list by their due date. That's a big one, because then every Monday you just go to the board and you're like, okay, what are the cards that are like next up? And you can just see it and go right through it and figure out which ones are going to be worked on that week. I really like that one.
Can I add one?
Yeah, what do you got?
All right, I get so excited. You can just see my excitement just like brewing.
I love it.
So for me, which I like, to the self-management part of this, I use Butler. We actually have like some content on the blog about this too, but like creating a master board. So I'm gonna explain what that means. So I have like a lot of Trello boards and a lot of projects, and it can kind of get a little overwhelming sometimes, where like you're toggling in between like all these boards and you're just like, someone commented somewhere and you have to like track it down. So I set up a Butler rule that whenever someone like anyone on a board adds me to a card, it pipes into a master board and it like creates like an incoming list for me and then it links the boards, like the two cards together, so I can easily like toggle between boards, but I just have a one master board that I can see everything that I have to work on week over week. And then I can just jump into each board like for the updates and provide comments and like work with the team. But it's just a really nice way for me to self-manage like all the tasks I have going on, all the different projects in one central place through a master board. And I set that all up through Butler. So if anyone's like interested, I can send you like a screenshot of the actual like what it says. We do have some like content on the blog too that kind of explains this concept, but I find it's super helpful.
Love that.
All right, Ronnie, you got another one for us? I think we have time for one more.
Yeah, one more.
Let's see, I'm actually just going to scroll through. We answered most of these, but I'm just going to look at what super stood out. Oh, well, okay. This one was interesting. Someone mentioned that, like, you know, I've been working from home for a long time, but like they still totally fall into the trap of doing household chores. So I linked them to the Pomodoro method because that's a personal favorite of mine. But how do you guys kind of not fall into those traps?
I just don't do my dishes. I don't know.
Yeah, I just don't. I honestly, it's honestly embarrassing. I work from home. I should be doing my laundry more than I do. You know, honestly,
right?
there's a lot about remote work, and I love to get into all this. Is like, I love this whole like psychological separation thing. You know, like if I'm here at my desk, I'm not like out on the couch. I'm not near my bedroom. Like I really need it to be like a separate place. Physically, because psychologically I just get in that zone. And I wrote about this actually recently for HubSpot's blog, because a lot of y'all are not optimized. You don't have an office. Like that's not a luxury of yours. Like you're literally pulling up to the side of your like dresser drawer, right? And to like work, but like make that your zone. And yeah, there's a few productivity tips that you can help to like get into the zone, because I know if you associate your house with like just being at home, you're not used to getting into the work zone. But you do need to kind of create some kind of mental separation there.
Yeah, I find like if like I have the privilege of having like a space, like a desk and everything, like a nice setup, and been working remotely for several years. So, but if you don't have that, like even just like putting your headphones on, and you don't even need to play like music, but just like put your headphones on, and that like signifies to you like I'm working. And if there's anyone else in your house, that also signifies to them like I'm working, do not interrupt me. And then also like kind of back to like the chore part, if you find yourself like just doing like things around the house constantly, you're not going like to work, or try, like we mentioned before, try to like time box those things. I actually like really enjoy like after like just kind of going heads down or having several meetings, like going into the kitchen, making myself lunch, and then like taking a little bit extra time to do the dishes right then, instead of like leaving it to that or at the end of the day, like almost kind of like a reward, and it like reminds you to like stand up and move around. So you kind of like incorporate them as part of your schedule, then you may not feel like as guilty of doing them. And it's just like, and then, you know, at the end, maybe if you're doing it throughout the day and it's like a very like part of your schedule and a little bit of like a reward, then, you know, at night you can just like hang out a little bit more. You don't feel like you have to just go do the laundry constantly for like 3 hours after working all day.
I think that makes sense. All right. Well,
Cool.
thank you everyone so much. We've had a lot of fun talking to y'all today. Looking forward to some follow-up reactions. Definitely reach out to us. And we'll be sharing all of the resources that we talked about so that you can dig in on remote work best practices on your own time.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. Really appreciate it.
All right.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.